Sometimes, what truly punishes a person is not what they have done, but the fact that they must continue living as someone who has done it. Sometimes the greatest pain a person experiences exists in a silence no one notices. From the outside, everything appears fine. Life moves forward, days resemble one another, words fall into their proper places. Yet inside, there is a weight that resists naming. It is neither clear regret nor definite guilt. It feels more like an inner restlessness, something lodged deep within, impossible to escape and just as impossible to face directly. Dostoevsky's world speaks precisely from this uncertainty. For him, a person is most broken when they are left alone with their own silence. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt a gaze rising from within you, even when no one else was watching or judging? A sense that something is wrong, even though no crime has been committed. Moments when a choice you made long ago suddenly moves to the center of your mind and silences everything else. No one reminds you. No one accuses you. Yet you remember. Because conscience is not a voice from the outside. It is the most personal court a person establishes against themselves. In Dostoevsky's novels, characters are rarely caught. They are not punished by police, judges, or society. And yet, they suffer deeply. Because the real punishment begins in a place no one can see. A person can evade consequences, justify their actions, blame circumstances, even persuade themselves. But they cannot escape the conclusion they eventually reach about who they are because of what they have done. At that point, conscience no longer serves as a guide. It becomes a witness. Silent, persistent, and always present. This witnessing is not a single confrontation. It becomes a state of constant observation. You may not feel watched at every moment, but whenever you are alone, that gaze returns. It is easy to lose yourself in crowds, in conversation, in busyness, in distraction. But when loneliness arrives, conscience reveals its patience. It does not rush. It does not immediately corner you. It waits. Because people expose their most vulnerable selves when they believe they are finally at ease. That is why, in Dostoevsky's world, conscience works not through sudden explosions, but through slow dissolutions. First, confidence in one's own thoughts begins to erode. Then feelings are approached with suspicion. Even when something is felt, a question arises: is this feeling deserved? And once that question is asked, happiness is already diminished. Here, conscience does not morally correct a person. It pulls them apart. The problem is no longer the boundary between right and wrong, but the place a person occupies in their own eyes. This is why Dostoevsky's characters are constantly explaining themselves. Not to others, but inwardly. Their minds are filled with long monologues, endless chains of thought, internal courts they construct on their own. Yet in these courts, the defense and the prosecution are the same person. They are both judge and defendant. This dual role consumes them. Because no matter how honest one tries to be, true impartiality is impossible. A person cannot fully know their own intentions. They cannot completely measure their own darkness. This uncertainty feeds conscience endlessly. People suffer more from the thought, "What if I accept that I am bad?" than from saying, "I am bad." Because that acceptance transforms identity. In Dostoevsky, the deepest fear is not punishment, but change. The inability to see oneself as one once did. This is why confession rarely brings relief. Confession is not an ending, but another beginning. Even when everything is laid bare, conscience does not stop. It concerns itself with the inner order of a person. And once that order is disrupted, restoring it is painfully difficult. Life goes on, yet something has shifted. People become quieter, more cautious, more restrained. They move through the world weighing themselves down with every step. This weight never disappears. It grows more sensitive over time. A small incident can trigger a vast echo. A minor mistake can awaken the memory of many others. Time no longer moves forward in a straight line. The past constantly seeps into the present. Conscience becomes an archive. It stores everything, revealing it not when asked, but when least expected. People want to forget, but conscience does not forget. They want to forgive themselves, but conscience is never in a hurry. Its concern is not justice, but consistency. The more a person denies who they are, the louder that inner witness becomes. And perhaps the most painful realization is this: even when someone believes they have silenced their conscience, their decisions are still shaped by it. They take fewer risks. They feel less deeply. They grow less attached. Safety becomes the priority, but safety comes at a cost. Life narrows. This is where Dostoevsky's darkness truly deepens. His stories are not about evil. They are about a person slowly abandoning themselves in order to survive. And when this realization finally arrives, the question is no longer about the past. It is about what kind of person one has chosen to become in the present to keep the silence intact. No external court could ever ask a heavier question. Answering it requires direct confrontation with oneself. Conscience is often described as a force that leads us toward goodness. But in Dostoevsky's world, conscience rarely heals. It reveals. It exposes hidden fractures. It disrupts the story a person wants to tell about themselves. Because people want to believe not only in others, but in who they think they are. Conscience relentlessly tests that belief. This is where we reach the heart of crime and punishment. Though it appears to be a story about murder, it is truly the story of a conscience slowly unraveling. The crime is only the beginning. What matters is the inner life that follows. Raskolnikov builds theories to justify himself. He divides humanity into the ordinary and the extraordinary. He convinces himself that some people exist beyond moral law. If this is true, then his act is no longer a crime. But conscience has no interest in theory. It does not ask how a person labels themselves. It asks what they have become. Raskolnikov's collapse does not stem solely from the murder, but from realizing he was capable of committing it. Sometimes, the most disturbing discovery is not what we did, but what we are capable of doing. Murder is a moment. Conscience is continuous. It follows him into sleep, into the streets, into conversations. It reappears in glances, silences, dreams. His illness is not physical. It is existential. His relationship with himself has been irrevocably altered. He can no longer see himself as before. Conscience offers no moral lesson. It simply reveals truth. And sometimes, truth is more unbearable than punishment. Dostoevsky shows us that the real tragedy is not being exposed, but continuing to live afterward. Life continues, but the inner order is shattered. Even redemption offers no full relief. Because conscience does not resolve, it lingers. Free will, in this world, feels less like a gift and more like a burden. Yes, a person chooses. But they also carry the weight of that choice. Over time, that weight settles not on the body, but on the mind. Everything looks normal from the outside. Inside, something is always shifting. Quietly, a slow dissolution begins. Not dramatic, not visible. The same streets, the same people, the same sentences remain. But intention changes. Every thought now carries doubt. Not do I want this, but do I deserve to want it? Self-censorship becomes internal and subtle. Doors do not slam shut, they narrow. You can still pass through them, but it hurts. Happiness becomes smaller. Comfort replaces fulfillment. Even restraint carries weight. Over time, people are burdened not only by what they have done, but by what they have not done. Words never spoken. Paths never taken. Truths never faced. These things accumulate silently. Alienation from the self begins here. Not because one becomes unrecognizable, but because something familiar disappears. This is why Dostoevsky's characters think endlessly. The outside world no longer distracts them. The real conflict lives within. Freedom exists, but space shrinks with every choice. Chosen paths illuminate abandoned ones. At some point, a person mourns their own lost possibilities. Quietly, invisibly. Conscience, here, is not a moral authority. It is memory. It remembers what must be forgotten. It returns unexpectedly, in a glance held too long, in a silence that feels heavy, in a tone of voice. Minds grow tired, not from labor, but from constant balance seeking. And balance never lasts. People try to bargain with themselves. I accept it, they say. The past is over. But conscience breaks deals. It cares not about time, but about meaning. Meaning does not stay in the past. Explanations fail where honesty is required. And the lies we tell ourselves cost more than the lies we tell others. Dostoevsky's darkness does not come from despair, but from inescapability. Nothing remains fully hidden, especially from oneself. And perhaps the real tragedy is this: in trying to silence conscience, a person is really trying to silence themselves. When that realization arrives, it is not dramatic. It is still. Life continues, but heavier, slower, incomplete. So the question is never, what did you do? It is always, what did what you did turn you into? And this question does not release its grip once answered. It haunts us when it cannot be. Do not rush to defend yourself while listening. Do not immediately say, I've never felt this. Conscience does not speak only of great crimes. Sometimes it speaks through small decisions, an unspoken word, an unfaced fear. If certain sentences make you uncomfortable, it may not be because they are false, but because they touch something real. Dostoevsky offers no final answers. He opens a door and steps aside. Whether you enter is up to you. He does not say whether conscience makes you better. But he shows you this: you are never truly alone when conscience speaks, only when it falls silent. Because that voice belongs only to you. You cannot share it. You cannot escape it. So do not rush to answer this. Let it linger somewhere in your mind. If conscience is not a guide that leads you forward, but a witness you cannot flee, what is truly frightening, what you have done, or your ability to keep living with it?